just to emphasize what I've been saying about Andy Ruiz for my past few videos on him, here we have him saying, look, my main advantage was the weight I put on. Ortiz wasn't able to drop me. Dear, oh dear, oh dear. Just like I've been saying, he was looking for any excuse to go back to his old ways, to relapse, to backslide. His main advantage was the weight. So you're saying that the main advantage was all the burgers, the burritos, the tacos, the pizzas, etc. That was an advantage? That's how you got the advantage over Ortiz. Okay. No. If he had continued down, in fact, let me just quote him here. He said, the main advantage was the weight I put on. He wasn't able to drop me. I felt if I was 250 something, it would have been a fight of him dropping me and me dropping him. I felt strong. I felt explosive. I was a bit too cautious. He hits hard, so I had to be smart. Okay, he goes on. So this was him talking at the post-fight press conference. But I maintain what I've said all along. When you're losing a lot of weight, when you're making a transition to a diet which has less calories than the diet you're used to, your body is going to take time to adjust. You're not going to have your old strength right away. But if you persevere, your body eventually will acclimatize to the lower weight, less calories, different diet, and so on. It will. It just takes time. Rather than continue down that path, and I'm sure this is what Eddie Reynoso was telling him, and Canelo as well. Rather than continue on down that path, Andy Ruiz had the perfect excuse. People were telling him after the Areola fight, your punch resistance ain't the same when you're lighter. You're better when you're heavier. Don't continue down this path of losing weight. Gain weight back. Go back to being 268, 270. And here we are. So rather than looking at the disadvantages of being 270 pounds, he's looking at the only short-term advantage, which is that his punch resistance was better. And it was better here than it was against Chris Areola. I'm not going to dispute now that his punch resistance against Areola was depleted because of the weight loss, the fewer calories and so on. Yes, but that's in the short term. In the long term, it will come back to you because it's not just about the punch resistance. It's about the physical strength, the energy, how you feel inside. You're going to feel drained. When Tyson Fury had lost all that weight and came back against Pianeta and Sefa Safiri, he was weak in those fights. Even in the first Wilder fight, he was weak. But by the time he fought Tom Schwartz, you could see he was a lot stronger. Even though he was fighting a poor opponent, he was a lot stronger than he was in those previous fights. Same with Otto Wallin, excuse me. He was a lot stronger in the Wallin fight than he was in the Pianeta or Sefa Safiri fight, particularly the Pianeta in the first Wilder fights. So, yeah, it takes time for your body to adjust to the lower calories. And you can also get certain things like adrenal burnout because when you've had to lose that much weight, it takes a ridiculous amount of training, more training than your body is used to doing. You see, so you can basically overtrain when you have to get down to that level of weight. You see? And so Ruiz, rather than factoring this in, because once you're down to a certain weight, you don't have to train as intensely every time. Let's say Ruiz gets down to 245. The period where he's getting down from 270 to 245 over the space of, I don't know, a year and a half. Yeah. He has to train extremely hard. Once you're at 245, maintaining that weight, if you watch what you eat and everything, is easier. You don't have to train as intensely to maintain it. It's just getting down to it in the first place is where all the hard work goes in. And that's where you can burn yourself out. You see? But again, Ruiz doesn't want to consider any of that. He likes people saying that he's better heavy because now he can go back to his old habits. Now he can go back to the buffet table. He can go back to the 2-3 liter bottles of Coca-Cola on the couch with the pizza. He can go back to all that now. People have given him the carte blanche that he was looking for all along. Rather than continuing down the path he should have been on, it's a wrap. So this is the Ruiz we've got for the remainder of his career. And I know some of you are telling me that wanting Ruiz to get in shape and get down to, 240 or less was a pipe dream. I know you guys said that. But I'm always someone who sees a talented fighter and I hope for the best. You know what I mean? I'm always looking at them thinking, I just want, in fact, every fighter, I want to see them make the most out of their ability. That's all. I don't care whether it's Ruiz, Fury, AJ, Dylan White, Wilder, whoever, any division, any weight. I want to see every fighter make the most out of their ability. Andy Ruiz is not going to make the most out of his ability coming in at 270 pounds. No. Making the most out of his ability is going to take work. It's going to take weight loss. It's going to take perseverance. But he's not willing to do that. So this is the Ruiz we've got. A 270-pound man who's 6'1" at best. Right? Yeah, he's got fast hands. With less weight on him, he'd have some pretty fast feet too. As it stands right now, the feet are very slow. And look, what I will say though, his feet have got a bit faster, even at nearly 270 here, than they were prior to him being with Reynoso. And that's because they worked on his leg strength. They did a lot of leg exercises, and there's a lot of muscle definition in his legs now that didn't exist prior to him being with Reynoso. So he's definitely retained some of the muscle that he developed under Reynoso, but he's also put loads of fat back on. And I wouldn't at all be surprised, with Ruiz's attitude, going back to his original attitude, I wouldn't be at all surprised if in Ruiz's next fight, he turns up heavier than this. Honestly, you can't give people like this carte blanche and tell them, oh yeah, he's better when he's heavy. Because it's like dealing with an addict, You give them an excuse to keep using. I mean, they're going to go right to town. Yeah, as cruel as it seems, people should stay on Ruiz's case about his weight. Because it's better for him. Yeah? Not just in terms of his boxing career, but even long-term health is going to be better for him. What is this guy eating to be in this kind of condition? What kind of lifestyle does he have away from the gym to be carrying this much body fat? Think about it. I know people have got different genetics and not everybody can be ripped. 100% get that. I'm not asking for Andy Ruiz to be ripped, but good God, look how much body fat the guy carries. So anyway, it is what it is. He is who he is. And he's going to be overweight for the rest of his career, I guess. But even the overweight version of Andy Ruiz, I think, is dangerous for most guys out there. And I'm going to reiterate what I said in, was it the post-fight video? One of the videos I did after the Luis Ortiz fight. I think the Wilder fight is completely different from the Ortiz fight. People writing Andy Ruiz off, saying Wilder smokes him, it's an easy fight. Even Chris Arreola said something similar. I disagree. I think that's a highly competitive fight. In fact, Teddy Atlas, I was watching his podcast earlier on today, and he said it all hinges on whether Andy Ruiz can take Wilder's punch. If he can take Wilder's right hand the way he was able to take Luis Ortiz's left hand, Teddy Atlas suggested that Wilder's in trouble, right? Because Ruiz is much technically better than Deontay Wilder. He's better coordinated than Wilder. He's got better footwork. He's got better balance. There are lots of things that Andy Ruiz does better than Deontay Wilder. Obviously, Wilder has beaten plenty of people who are technically better than him, but nobody with the speed of a Ruiz. Maybe not too many fighters with the chin of an Andy Ruiz. I mean, his chin isn't George Chuvalo level. It isn't Oliver McCall level, but it's pretty good. He's been down, but he's always got back up, and it's always been to win. He got off the floor to beat Anthony Joshua, dropped him in the very same round that he got dropped, and he got off the floor to beat Chris Arreola. So that says something about him, that he can get off the floor to win fights. A lot of other fighters can't do that. So yeah, I think that Ruiz against Wilder, even Ruiz at 270, is an intriguing fight. And I think people are going to be surprised by how well Ruiz does. I'm not saying that he wins necessarily, but I think people will be surprised by how well he does. And again, we have to see what Deontay Wilder looks like in this Hellenius fight. Boxing fans, one of the most accurate sayings in boxing, other than styles make fights, is you're only as good as your last fight. And I don't say that from a literal perspective. I say that from the perspective of observing the way boxing fans behave, because they only ever seem to remember your last performance. They don't remember anything before that. They only remember what you did last time out. And if the last time out was an incredible performance where you smashed somebody to pieces, then they say, oh my gosh, this guy's going to destroy so-and-so. And the other one, it's like when Ruiz beat AJ. There were lots of people saying, oh yeah, he's going to smoke Wilder too. Not everybody, but plenty of people. He's going to give this one trouble and that one trouble. But then after the Areola fight and after this fight, oh, Wilder destroys him in one round. This is an easy fight. They're so reactionary. But people have been in the same situation with Wilder. When Wilder was struggling in fights against Artur Spilka, Johan Duopa, obviously losing to Fury. Well, not so much with Fury because people see him as the best in the division and he's created this narrative that him and Wilder are number 1 and 2, when in reality we haven't definitively established who the best fighter in the division is. There's still a man called Alexander Usyk, and Deontay Wilder hasn't fought anyone really other than Fury. So, regardless of all that, the Andy Ruizes of the world, I think, are going to surprise people. Ruiz is going to surprise the public when he fights Deontay Wilder, because again, Wilder's had poor performances that I guess people have forgotten about. Ruiz has had some performances in his last 2 fights where he's shown some vulnerability. Areola, he showed punch resistance vulnerability, and in the Ortiz fight, he showed maybe mental vulnerability because he wasn't willing to go in there and really dog the older man and take him out. He was cautious. He was concerned about the left hand. So concerned about Luis Ortiz's left hand that despite scoring 3 knockdowns over him, he was willing to let loads of rounds pass him by. And he allowed the fight to be far closer than it should have been. So a lot of people actually, there was something I forgot to mention. I didn't realize it at the time, by the way. When the fight happened, I thought that the second knockdown was actually legit. I don't think I saw the slow motion when I watched the fight live, but subsequently I've seen the slow-mo replay, and indeed, as other people are pointing out, that wasn't a knockdown, the second knockdown. And if that hadn't been called, that would have been a 10-8 round rather than a 10-7 round, which would have meant that Ruiz still won, but only by a split decision rather than unanimous decision. Or in fact, would it have been a split decision? Or would it have been a draw on one of the judges' scorecards? That would make it a majority decision rather than split. But either way, it would have been a majority decision or a split decision had that second knockdown, which wasn't really a knockdown, been acknowledged as not a real knockdown by the ref. In any event, it wouldn't have changed the result. But the point I'm making is boxing fans have short memories. They're very reactionary. I try to step back from all the hype and look at the big picture as much as I possibly can. And when I step back and look at the big picture, I see a guy like Andy Ruiz, 32 years of age. Deontay Wilder's like, 35, 36? Coming off 2 devastating beatings, terrible beatings he took in his last 2 fights, and a long layoff. Going in against Hellenius, why is everyone so sure that he destroys Ruiz? Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, that's just a weird assumption to be making. And why are people completely forgetting that styles make fights? Deontay Wilder was fighting a huge guy in Tyson Fury. Andy Ruiz, a much smaller guy, lower center of gravity. And Ruiz is better at blocking right hands than he is at blocking straight left hands from southpaw because he's used to fighting guys who are orthodox. First southpaw he's faced as a pro. So I'm not expecting him to try and be on the back foot and counterpunching Deontay Wilder. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe he will opt for those tactics. I think it will be a terrible mistake for him to do so. But no, I'm expecting Andy Ruiz to be more like he was in the AJ fight. against Wilder where he's stalking. He's not like out and out flying in with reckless abandon, because that's never been his style. But it has always been his style to stalk, to use his jab, to wait for the opponent to throw something, and then he opens up with those extremely fast hands that he has. And if there's one thing to be said about Andy Ruiz, he still has incredible hand speed. I mean, when he was letting that right hand go against Ortiz, it was coming in so fast, it almost took my breath away. I mean, very, very fast hands. And Wilder's going to have to watch out for that. And it won't just be the right hand against Wilder. The left hook is going to come into play as well, because against an orthodox fighter, particularly a guy like Wilder, who leans in so much when he throws his right hand, it's not like Klitschko would maintain his upright stance while he throws his right hand. He wouldn't lean his upper body forward like he's throwing a javelin or something. Do you know what I mean? Like he's throwing a shot put or something when he throws the right hand. Wilder does that often. And when you lean forward like that, a guy like Andy Ruiz can counter you with shots. You see? So, yeah, for me, that's an intriguing fight between Andy Ruiz and Deontay Wilder. Not a straightforward win for Wilder at all. And as I say, in my view, people are going to be shocked by how well Ruiz does. I think he's got a good chance to win. Would I make Wilder a favorite? I want to see how well he does against Helenius first. But that fight to me is nearly 50-50, Wilder against Andy Ruiz. That's a real tight fight, just based on styles. Wilder, even though he's beat Ortiz twice, he doesn't have the technique of Luis Ortiz. He's not a sharper counterpuncher as Luis Ortiz. He doesn't have as many tools as Ortiz has. He's not as well coordinated as Ortiz. He doesn't have as good a balance as Ortiz. I'm saying that Ruiz is going to find more opportunities to land his shots against Wilder than he had against Ortiz. Wilder makes more mistakes. Again, rock, paper, scissors, styles make fights. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below.